Hello, welcome to News Centre. I'm Parikshit Luthra. Today we shift our focus to the aviation sector that's continuously riddled with airlines facing troubles and massive financial troubles, one after the other. In the last 1 decade, 3 airlines, including Kingfisher, Jet Airways and now Go First, have been grounded. Another carrier, SpiceJet, is also facing severe and several headwinds. While airlines are shutting down, India's air passenger traffic is continuously rising, creating a demand-supply imbalance. After Go First suspended operations, airfares have been hitting roofs, especially on routes that Go First had operated. So what is the root cause of these issues and what is the solution to airlines' financial woes? What can the government do to ensure airlines are making profits without burning a hole in the consumer pockets? Let me now go across to Kapil Kaul, CEO, South Asia at CAPA, Jagannarayan, Padmanabhan, Senior Director at CRISIL, and Devesh, Agarwal, Chief Analyst at Bangalore Aviation. Thank you very much for joining us on the program today. Kapil Kaul, let me begin with you. Do you get a sense that lessors not being allowed to repossess their aircraft in the case of Go First, and we're also seeing lessors wanting to get SpiceJet aircraft deregistered, do you think this will have the consequences of lessors in future demanding higher risk premiums from other airlines? Do you think this problem that we're seeing with Go First and SpiceJet today will spiral to the rest of the aviation industry?
Hi, good evening to everyone. I think the lessor community is extremely upset with the recent challenges that we saw at Go Air. But I don't think it's going to impact good credits. Air India is a good credit. Indigo is a good credit. Indigo has been exceptional during COVID with respect to its payment track record. So I don't think it's going to impact good credits like Air India and Indigo, perhaps even Akasa. But airlines that are struggling and the airlines that are going to come, including the new startups, whether they are in the scheduled airline capacity or the regional airline capacity, they will find challenges not only in terms of lease rate factors going up, but even in terms of terms and conditions. We did see prior to COVID, some regional airlines having to pay 6 months of lease rental and 6 months of advance to secure a plane. I think we'll get tighter with newer startups. The risk premium would go up, terms and conditions will become more onerous. But for good credits like Air India and Indigo and Akasa, I don't see a challenge, particularly to Indigo and Air India at the present moment. The lease rate factors are going up as a consequence of interest rates have moved up significantly. But as of now, I don't see any challenge with respect to good credits, but serious challenges with respect to new entrants who are going to come in the space, not only in terms of lease rate factors, but also in terms of terms and conditions.
Right. Jagannarayan, in the last 2 decades, we've seen Kingfisher, Jet Airways, Go First being grounded. What do you think are some of the common problems that all these airlines had faced?
So I wouldn't say there is a common thread. There is always a new story for each of this, right? I think that's how we should look at it. The previous ones, there was a lot of thing on the pricing part of it, which got really impacted for the likes of the Kingfisher and the Jet Airways part of it, and more so for Jet Airways. There was a thing between the market share versus what's the revenue part of it. So, and when you fight a market share battle with a low-cost carrier at a price point of a full-service airline, then that kind of really pinched them really badly. So that was that part of it. The second, so I think each of them had their own story, but the larger impact is that if you're able to see some of this beforehand, put some certain set of risk metrics and take some early calls rather than to wait till the end of or at a point of no return. Before that, if you're able to do it, that would be a lot better. And many of them have been extremely leveraged as well. So I think that is an important aspect to kind of relook at it. If you're cash positive or have a very strong balance sheet, these are the ones, or those are the companies who have been able to weather this kind of environment better in comparison to the others.
Right. Let me also go across to a third guest, Devesh Agarwal, Chief Analyst at Bangalore Aviation. Devesh, to the point that Jagannarayan and Kapil were making, every airline which got grounded had its own set of issues. And yes, all of this has consequences for the consumer. But are there certain interventions that the government now needs to take, the DGCA now need to take in order to prevent such crisis in future with other airlines?
Hi, Parikshit. Thanks for having me. Yes. In fact, the first thing I would turn around and say, if you see the lessor's writ petition, they specifically asked the government to follow existing laid down law, which is Rule 30, Clause 7 of the Aircraft Act. Now, if the government is not following its own laws, I don't know what to turn around and say further. In this particular case, it's really the effect on all of India, and it begins. I'm sorry, but I don't fully agree with what Kapil is saying. Yes, the Tatas and the Indigos have got a reasonably big battle chest, and so they will be in a position to, weather the storm a little bit, and lessors and vendors may have more faith in them. But it is going to have, the act of go and the fact that, lessors were not allowed to repossess the aircraft, etc., is going to have a tumbling effect on Indian aviation as a whole. It is going to then affect passengers because any increased cost is going to go on to the passengers. And the shaky airlines are definitely, again, going to be, requiring either more bailouts or they'll end up folding up, in which case the bailouts that have already been given to them or the bank loans that they have taken will end up, being put onto the head of the taxpayer. So the flow of the financial impact is there. And right now, basically, the government of India is doing nothing. And that is where the whole problem is happening. If you look at it, this aviation working group, it's not a legal group, but it is, sort of like a kind of a, I wouldn't use the word ratings group. It would be, equivalent like a Modi's, where it has an influence. And it has people like Airbus and Boeing and all in its board. And these guys, they know fully well that they are battling out, and they know the size of the Indian aviation market. And despite all that, for them to turn around and issue a warning to the government of India saying, what you guys are doing is not correct, it really says something. And there is a lot of jitteriness in the world community, especially the leasing community, saying, do we have money? What is the situation? Is this aircraft a write-off? Is it, are we going to get to use it? Let's face it, there's almost $3 billion worth of aircraft sitting on the ground and nothing is being done about it. And everybody's crying about airfare.
Let me go back to Jagannarayan.
Sorry?
Okay. Yeah, I'm going to come back to you, Devesh. Jagannarayan, if I can come back to you, let's look at specific airlines. SpiceJet, for example, they've been having legal troubles. They have legal dues that they need to pay up. Kalanidhi Maran, Credit Suisse as well. Then there is a insolvency petition that has been filed against them by one of their lessors. At the same time, there are lessors seeking deregistration of one aircraft each. How do you see the financial health of SpiceJet with the legal troubles and the legal dues that they would have to pay up in the next few months or years? They're fighting it, they're disputing it, but what do you feel about the overall financial health, the operational health of SpiceJet at this juncture?
Parikshit, real apologies, I can't comment on a particular airline on their financial health. That's not my mandate to talk about, and I'm really apologies for that. I think the overall impact on the industry is something that I can talk about. I'm not privy to the individual financials and where they are and their health on SpiceJet, so excuse me on that.
Right, but Jagannarayan, so on the issue of the financial health, there are two airlines right now who are facing these issues with regard to insolvency, with regard to payment to lessors. What can the government do? You spoke about risk metrics, about early warning signals. What can governments do, according to some of the global examples, in order to prevent such instances in future and to somehow rescue these airlines out of these crises?
So, I think you're using the word rescue. I think it will be very important to see what's in the overall merit of where the government needs to step in and what business. So I think we should not look at just only the Indian airlines as an industry, because there is stress which will be there across multiple other sectors So government always has that, tightrope to walk. That will they be setting up an example for any other industry to follow through and then cite these as examples on how, if at all, a bailout or a rescue part of it. Some of it has already happened. Loans at concessional rates have already been committed. Many of them have done those drawdowns. So I think those are already there in space. A. B. What has happened in the past, this is not the first time it's happening in India, what has government done before? And hence, there have been statements which have been made that government would want to keep itself out of the running of a particular company. Similar cases have been talked about in terms of Kingfisher or Jet Airways for various other reasons and all of it. So they have maintained their stance as how much that they can. So I think individual company, they may not be able to come in. They may be able to support it at an industry level, at a sector level, yes, or nudge some of the other counterparties to, maybe go a bit more than what they can accommodate to help a particular company. I think those are the areas in which the government can really step in. I don't see much of a role to be played on a particular company level from the government side.
Right. Kapil, my final question to you. What do you see is the trajectory for the airline sector, especially for the consumer? We're also getting news, and this is according to some reports, that Go First Interim Resolution Professional has submitted a 6-month revival plan to the DGCA and has said that it is ready to resume operations with 26 operational aircraft and 400 pilots on its rolls. These are news reports at this juncture, but how much confidence you have in Go First revival and the issues that we're seeing with Jet Airways, with Go First, with SpiceJet, what impact will this have on the airline sector in the coming months, on airfares, which are really hitting record highs right now?
First of all, we must recognize that there is a serious capacity crisis as far as aviation is concerned, both domestic and international, maybe particularly more domestic. Prior to COVID, compared to pre-COVID, we are about 125 aircraft short. If you incorporate the demand that's likely for FY24, we may be 175 plus aircraft short. So there's a serious capacity crisis. When there is such a shortage of supply and the demand continues to be robust, a logical conclusion is fare increases, and the recent operational shutdown at Go will impact certain markets more, maybe Bombay, Ahmedabad, perhaps Leh, Srinagar. The overall network impact is not going to be so much because the fleet is gradually moved from 59 to 20s, and then it went to an operational shutdown. So I think it will ease up by second half of the fiscal, because some of the aircraft that are grounded have started coming back, and the new inductions will start rolling in from second half of the fiscal. So you will see the impact on the passengers reasonably easing up from second half of the year. But overall, I think there are two issues with respect to about the state of the industry. I think we are at an inflection point, which is very positive. We have two central pillars, which are very strong and robust, with balance sheet, product, cash, and new aircraft orders. So I think after a long time, the airline industry is looking very stable with Indigo, Air India, with Tata's balance sheet, and even Akaksa. You have a legacy issue with the second set, which got seriously impacted by COVID. And when you have 4,000-5,000 crores of loss for each airline, and COVID was a major risk to that, those legacy issues will come out very seriously unless and until there is a significant recap. But on the other side, the industry is looking much more stable. The airline system is looking much more stable, and you will see the impact of that stability in about a year or so. But for the legacy airlines, government's role is limited. Recap is the only way to salvage the situation, and whether recap can happen and can happen to a level where a serious reorder of the business plan and their business can happen. One is to wait and watch. But I think overall the airline system looks stable.
All right, we've run out of time.
I think the two main pillars, which is the Air India and Indigo, I think will stabilize Air India and Indigo plus Akaksa will stabilize the industry seriously, and the effects you will see from next year, if not from this year.
Okay. All right, we've completed our time, but Kapil Kaul, Jagannarayan, Devesh Agarwal, thank you very much for joining us here on this broadcast. We'll keep track of this big story, this crisis that we're seeing in the aviation sector right now. But we're going to take a break at this point. When we return,